Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. This is Snigdha Mohapatra, a third year student from KIT School of Law and currently an intern under LEXCLIQ. So the topic for today's video is passing off under trademark law. It has been famously quoted in the Hasbury Laws of England. Nobody has any right to represent his goods as the goods of somebody else. This basically means that no one has the right to represent one's goods as someone else's. Passing off is a common law tort which protects the goodwill and reputation of trademark holder against damage caused by the misrepresentation of the defendant. It is based on the principle that a man may not sell his own goods under the pretense that they are the goods of another man. The Supreme Court has defined passing off action in the case of Cadila Healthcare Limited versus Cadila Pharmaceuticals Limited as the species of unfair trade competition or of actionable unfair trading by which one person through deception attempts to obtain an economic benefit of the reputation which the other has established for himself in a particular trade or business. The action of passing off can be done by using the trade name or trademark or other get-up of the plaintiff or to induce in potential purchasers the belief that his goods or business were those of the plaintiff. The tort lies in misrepresentation by the defendant. The misrepresentation is aimed at the potential buyers of the goods or services who are invited to buy the goods, believing that the goods are of the plaintiff. This might be done through confusing or deceitful use of the trade names or marks or other indications used by the plaintiff in respect of their goods and services. The passing of action is to correct an actionable wrong based on the broader common law principle that nobody has any right to represent his goods or business as the goods or business of somebody else. The principle is that trading must not only be honest but must not even unintentionally be dishonest. The purpose of passing off action is to protect commercial goodwill and to ensure the purchasers are not exploited and dishonest trading is prevented. For that, the plaintiff must establish that his business or goods have acquired the reputation. Where the defendant's goods are marked with the trademark of plaintiff or made up or described as calculated to mislead the ordinary purchaser, it is a tendency to mislead or confuse which forms the gist of passing off action. There is no need to establish fraud or actual deception or actual damages in such cases. The law of passing off thus does not protect the interest of the owner of the trademark but of the consumers also against misrepresentation. In the case of Consumer Distributing Co. versus Seco Time Canada Limited, it was held that the simple wrong of selling one's goods deceitfully as those of another is not now the core of the action. It is the protection of the community from the consequential damage of unfair competition and unfair trading. Now, there are certain essentials which must be proved for constituting passing off action. The law of passing off arises when there is misrepresentation, goodwill is harmed in the course of trade, which causes the damage to the trade or goodwill of the trader by whom the action is brought. The characteristics of passing off are discussed and explained in the case of Irwin Warnick BV versus Townend. It has been stated as firstly misrepresentation, secondly made by a person in course of a trade, thirdly to prospective consumers of his or ultimate consumers of goods or services supplied by him, fourthly which are calculated to injure business or goodwill of another trade, fifthly which caused actual damage to a business or goodwill of a trader by whom the action was brought. There are three main elements of tort of passing off which were also referred as classical trinity in the case of Harrods versus Herodian school. These are first reputation, second deception and third damage. Once a representation is established, it is reasonable to infer that the customers of the goods bought them on that misrepresentation, unless there is evidence to the contrary. In the case of Reckitt versus Coleman, it was stated that, according to the law of passing off, no man could pass off his goods as those of another. It may be expressed in terms of the elements which the plaintiff in such an action has to prove in order to succeed. Firstly, goodwill has to be established or the reputation attached to goods or services which he supplies in the mind of purchasing public by association with the identifying get-up under which his particular goods or services are offered to the public as distinctive specifically of the plaintiff goods and services. Secondly, he must demonstrate a misrepresentation by the defendant to the public leading or likely to lead the public into believing that goods or services offered by him are goods and services of the plaintiff. Thirdly, he must demonstrate that he suffers or is likely to suffer damage by reason of erroneous belief engendered by the defendant's misrepresentation that the source of defendant's goods or services is the same as the source of those offered by the plaintiff. These are three necessary elements. These are two necessary elements. Firstly, misrepresentation expressed or implied, but not necessarily fraudulent. And second, a consequent likelihood of damage to the plaintiff's goodwill. In the case of Baker Hughes Limited versus Hiru Kushlani, the Delhi High Court held that the plaintiff in an action of passing off must establish the following elements. Firstly, the plaintiff has acquired a reputation or goodwill in his goods, name or mark. Secondly, a misrepresentation, whether intentional or unintentional, which proceeds from the defendant by the use of the name of the mark of the plaintiff or by any other method or means which leads to or likely is lead or likely leads to the purchaser into believing that the goods or services offered by the defendant are the goods and services of the plaintiff. And thirdly, the plaintiff has suffered or is likely to suffer damage due to the belief endangered by the defendant's misrepresentation. These three elements of passing off, namely the reputation of goods and possibility of deception and likelihood of damage, have also been approved by the Supreme Court in the case of Lakshmikant V. Patel versus Chetan Bhatt Shah. Thank you so much for watching the video and please subscribe to the channel for regular updates.